Hi, so this is a special episode of AAMI News and Conversation. I'm Brian. I'm here today with a very cool guest. We're going to be talking about VR in the healthcare space. Can you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name's Steve Sowards. I'm with Banner Health. I'm kind of a unique individual within the BMET teams because I'm not a BMET person. I'm a video producer that was brought in to the clinical video productions team there at Banner Health. I've been doing it for 33 years. And because I work with the BMET team so often to be able to get signals and be able to get what I need to use to produce, they actually found me a home there. And so it's actually become a very neat place and a very good partnership to work with the BMET teams and to produce video content both with our biomed team and for our doctors and physicians and for our system.
Now, I'm sure a lot of people watching are going to be wondering, what do I need video for, especially on the BMET side of it? But like you said, you're also working with clinicians. So I guess let's start there. I know that's a pretty easy application for VR. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. The way we got into VR was through clinicians. We had one clinician that saw VR as a great education platform. I went Banner University Medical Center out of Phoenix. We're the largest teaching hospital in the state of Arizona. So a lot of our clinicians are our educators for our residents, our medical students, and for our fellows. And they looked at VR as a great platform for education and training for both not only for their residency programs, but it's also trickled down into our nursing and to other clinician areas.
The most common application for virtual reality that I'm sure many people have heard about is surgeons training to then maybe use a robotically assisted surgical unit, a system. What else is there then? How do we take a step from beyond that?
Well, that's an interesting question. And what we've been using at Banner is some of the surgery. One of the things we've done or we're looking to do is using it for educating people how to maneuver in an OR environment. Right now, when I first went in to shoot in an OR, I was assigned a nurse. She watched over me like a hawk to make sure I didn't do anything stupid. She was trained, first off, don't touch anything blue, stay away from the surgical fields. If you need to do something that's there, you need to get permission. Don't trip over anything. Don't blow the floor.
Advice.
All good things. And told me how to get, make sure my head, everything was surgically, ready to be entered in the field. And then she watched me like a hawk until she felt comfortable that I wasn't going to do anything stupid and turn me a letter, especially since I had video production cameras. Come to find out, this is pretty much how everybody is introduced to our surgical field there at Banner. That's been a pretty good system. The problem is it leaves open the ability for minor people to become relaxed and forget one little aspect or another aspect. It's not a standardized system. It's been passed on from generation to generation to generation, so to speak. So what we're looking for VR is to be able to take people into that OR environment and everybody's trained in a standard way. Whether you be a person like me who's an outside educator that comes in that's maybe shooting B-roll for media or anything else, or the brand new nursing student or the brand new medical students, it's their first time, or even maybe an administrator who has to come in to watch a case or something. This allows everybody to be trained in a succinct manner so everything can be done accurately. And again, with like a BMET, a brand new BMET that has to come in and check out a piece of equipment.
I was talking recently to some gentlemen from St. Clair University up in Canada, and they are experimenting with VR as well for training their students. And one of the things that they mention is, VR has this nice application where you can give a student a sense of where they're going, the hospital they're heading to, even before they ever actually step in there. So they're a little bit more comfortable. They're less likely to make a mistake. Is that the same kind of situation we're talking about here?
Very much so, the same situation. One of the things we're looking at and doing is not only with the employee education, but also the patient education side. One of the things we're looking at our children, we have a very large children's hospital there in the Valley, and using that VR for demysticizing the surgical experience for a child. and we're building a VR thing that they'll be able to watch, makes it, what's going to happen the day of your surgery? Who are you going to meet? Now, we've done that in the standard flat format, standard video format.
Okay.
But by using the headsets that you have and immersing them and they can see around, it gives you that full immersive experience of where it is. And they're seeing the actual room and space of what they'll be traveling through, therefore taking down that stress level. The last thing you want before you go into surgery is to elevate your stress level. You want to bring that down.
Oh, this makes sense. It's a good application. You mentioned the headset. I did want to get a sense of what am I looking at here? Is this a very complex VR headset?
This is actually, I'm actually very sad that I have to present this headset. This is a an Oculus Go. This is one of the best headsets that came out at its time. I still like this headset. It has a very, very simple remote control for navigating the system. It's something that I love to use for our pain management for our patients. It's very simple instead of the double jointed handset controllers.
And we should point out Oculus is not sponsored by Banner or anything like that.
Banner is not sponsored by Banner. In fact, it's not even Oculus. It's now Meta. Because it's run by Facebook.
Interesting.
That's the good, bad side on this. The good side, it's been a very great platform. The downside is Meta is not very good B2B. They're more about the Facebook and pushing the other side. Mm-hmm. And because of that, they've moved on into the Quest and some of the other things, and they've kind of neglected the simple, easy-to-use headset. Now, we have over 100 of these.
Oh, wow. Which
makes it very nice that we're able to use them, and we're going to use them until end of life. And we find them, that's why we brought them to the show today. Is there better quality headsets out there? Yes, there is. We're now looking at some other brands that can replace this. But this headset's a very simple, easy to use, simple focus. Just kind of put it onto your head, locks down simply. The other thing is it's very easy on the other side for cleaning. This can just pop right out.
Oh, hey, look at that.
So you can just pop your face covering right out. They throw it in the washer. It sterilizes, it pops back in, or on a nursing unit or any other place you need it. We have extras of these that are clean. So you sit there, you pop the one off, you use the one off, you pop the new one on, and away you go.
Pretty easy for a health system. I should ask then, since we're talking about these, fairly simple devices in their applications, but what we haven't really talked about is the therapy side of VR. Now, you and I talked a little bit about this before, and I was kind of wowed by what you were saying. So I was hoping you could reshare some of that.
Absolutely. Today. One of the coolest things, I mean, really, as a production person, when they first shared this idea with me, when we were first getting into VR, and this is back in 2015, we had the medical director for Samsung came out and said, hey, we would like you to partner with Cedars-Sinai and we'd share what to do on some of that and start looking at pain management. And I was like, pain management? What the heck?
It's a little, yeah.
And wasn't really excited about it, but then they started sharing with us since we started reading, and then we went on and had Irb Studies. And so basically what we found was some very interesting things. I shouldn't say we found, because it's been found, when I say we, as the industry, because this is the same thing that's being documented, whether it be in Cedars-Sinai, Boston Children's, other places, that as little as 5 minutes in VR can have up to a 60% reduction in pain.
That's wild.
That is really wild. But even the wildest thing was the next thing they told me that blew me away, because I thought, well, yeah, as long as we're in the headset, of course, I'm distracted. It's like when you play video games or distractive therapy. But what was really crazy is it can last, documented can last up to 4 hours after you pull the headset off. One of my favorite stories is from our labor and delivery study that we had by Dr. Coles, and he told the story. As there was a mother delivering, and we use this, and we've had various degrees, different people, because of different bodies, different physiologically. But this one apparently was working very well with the headset. He literally, the baby was coming at that very moment and had to go up to mom and actually physically remove the headset from her and say, your baby is coming now. I need you back in reality. Now, I don't know about you, but when my wife delivered, that was not the case. She was not a very happy person. So I can see this as a great tool, and maybe it doesn't work perfectly for everybody, but if it brings you to maybe 40% pain and they don't have to use an epidural, or maybe use less of a dosage with an epidural, how much better is that for mom and baby? Mm-hmm. We've also used it in post-op. And we also have another study that's being looked at it for hand therapy, people going through physical therapy, very painful on their hands, and putting the VR headset on while they're doing the exercises, and they find that they're doing the exercises longer, they're enjoying it. It's kind of like with our rehab first used to do what we call WeHab, using the old Wii set.
Oh.
And that it's gamification.
Right.
And one of the great stories I have on that is we had a lady that had a double hip replacement, 80-year-old lady. And I don't even know if you remember the old Wii Fit board that people would stand on.
And I should point out to folks that we're talking about the Nintendo Wii gaming console. Yeah.
Right. And here's this 80-year-old lady, cute as can be, on her walker, and they just wanted her to transfer weight from one side to the other. So they put her on the Wii platform, and they gave her the penguin game, where the penguin's sitting on the ice and has to slide back and forth to catch the fish and kind of maneuver back and forth. And they said before, if they put her on lead weights, they may have got 2-3 minutes out of her moving back and forth or just trying on a board.
Mm-hmm.
On this, they'd have to stop her after 20 minutes. Sweat was coming down her face, and she had the biggest grin on her face. And so it's just the gamification of PT.
Wow.
And VR is just another tool that they're starting to find as an option that can bring it into it.
I'm sure some folks are wondering, and I myself was wondering it too. We were talking about the pain control and ways to distract yourself, but 4 hours after, that's still crazy. I'm curious though, what are some examples of what are they seeing in the VR set itself?
Very, very good question.
Yeah.
And the answer is, it varies from different people. What do you like to do? What do you like to see? And so we're trying to build at Banner, we're building a vast library of videos that you can go. Do you want to go to the beach? We have a great video of La Jolla Beach at sunset. It's amazing. We have a video, we have Sedona right in our backyard. And Sedona and the Red Rocks and Slide Rock and fall leaves and water. We have another one off the East Fork of the Verde. We went to Walden's Pond. I was back in Boston, and so I have a great video go tour around Walden's Pond and Walden's Woods. So the question is, what do you want to watch? It varies from individual. And my example I love to use is there's a video that when we first started using this, we're using another company, and they had a video called Swimming with Dolphins. Everybody loved the Swimming with Dolphins. But if you're afraid of drowning, this is not the video for you. This will not help you relax and enjoy and release those endorphins into your system. This is going to tense you up. And so back to the point, where's your happy place? And that's one of the things I keep looking as a video producer in the clinical area is what videos can I do? In fact, yesterday I had a great idea. I was talking with a gentleman here from the show that loves to golf, and he was telling me about these different courses he's done, and I thought, there's a lot of people that like to golf. Maybe I can make a VR of some of these and maybe get somebody like a caddy that's really in things and kind of describes a little history of the hole or something. And we could go to some of these, like maybe the Masters or some of the other some iconic places.
Golf courses.
Historic places that
cool.
could be very cool and put together kind of a little, you look right here in the hotel, they have the Top Golf and you digitally do it. Well, maybe this would be great, especially if you're trapped in a hospital. One of the other places we're looking to, the kind of the low-hanging fruit in VR to help in the clinician area is the antepartum unit, where you have mothers who are just stuck there, bed rest, waiting to deliver their babies. And they're bored silly. I've worked a lot with them over the things. You also have chemotherapy. My wife's a breast cancer survivor, and I remember going with her to receive her chemotherapy. And that was a stressful room. And they're putting drugs in your body. And looking at VR, and we're working with MD Anderson, looking down with them to be able to use this in there to try to calm them down, take them to a better place. I mean, they have the TVs there, but then you have to watch it from across the room. When you're in this, you're isolated in your world. Now, that brings me to one of my favorite points of VR. And I'm going to jump just a little bit, but there is no multitasking in VR. When I put your headset on, you are totally immersed in that world. When you turn to look your head, you are still in the VR world. For education and training, that brings in a new modality that you have. You can't check your phone. You can't go to your Instagram account. You can't see what your friends do. You can't even check your email. In fact, you can't even look at your watch.
Sounds like an instructor's dream.
It is. Yeah. You've got them captured in that environment. So when you're captured in an environment, one of the things we're looking at is for those who play video games, is what I'm kind of calling time compression. Those who played video games, and I'm one of them, I look at them, time sucks.
Oh, yeah.
You kind of lose track of what time is. Well, if I can put you in a VR headset and get you playing a game or get you something else, you will lose time. And especially if you're in that, like in dialysis, chemotherapy, some of these places, even in the waiting areas, what you've taken back in an ED department where you kind of come in and then you have to wait. Then you come in and you got to wait for radiology to come get you and get things, or you got to wait for labs to come back or whatever. What a great tool that we have now to start bringing and time compressing and also giving them something that will relax. So it's a double thing. You're kind of shortening the time, or what they've perceived shortening the time, and also making them in a more relaxed state when they're not in their best things. If you're coming in the ED, it's not because you're happy.
That's true. But I can see a patient wouldn't, I guess, dread their regular checkup, their regular check-in as much.
Yeah.
That seems pretty great. I want to dive into the process that you are going through now. But before that, I'm sure a lot of people have the burning question. Okay, how much is this going to cost me? What is my insurance going to be able to cover it? What's going on there?
Right. That's a really good question. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of answers because right now we're not billing for it. We use this as an added benefit at the hospital.
It's amazing.
And so we don't bill for it. The headsets are relatively cheap.
Yeah.
We produce our own content, especially, and the content for the patient's side is basically dovetailed on what we're doing on the clinician side. So we already have the equipment and gear to do it. And we probably don't have time here for this thing, and I covered it on my talk when I presented earlier, but we originally got into this from a very interesting story from how we got there. And our main thing was one of our skilled clinicians, Dr. Foley, who first had the visionary idea of bringing VR in. But he paid for the equipment out of his budget. So the initial outlay of this to do our first production was right under $20,000.
And that's the elevator pitch of what this story really dives into.
We were able, our $22,000. Now, total investment now, 7 years out, we're still under $50K. We've got, and I'll bring this over here so people can kind of see this, this cool new Death Star looking camera. I was showing the tech crew here this because I'm a video guy.
Right, I walked into the booth and there was an AV conference happening.
And they were all, that was probably, they're like, somebody speaks my language. And that's why I felt, hey, it's my people. But, this is a really cool camera. There's a couple different versions of different ones of this. This has 8 lenses all the way around. It real-time stitches. It allows us to do real-time VR streaming for live surgical events. I guess I could do other real-time streaming. That's not that unusual in this area. We can stream on YouTube. We can do stream on Facebook and some of the other platforms.
But this will give a trainee a sense of being in the room themselves.
Exactly. Right? This gives you a trainee, and we can present this and put this right in that critical spot in an OR, right across from that surgeon. And then, and maybe the best way for me to explain this is right now I've been doing clinical video productions for over 30 years. I go into a room, I put multiple cameras in multiple places. I take feeds from hemodynamics, fluoro, whatever it needs to be for that case. I'm the gatekeeper. I choose what the far side sees. With this, I'm no longer the gatekeeper. I can have one person looking straight down into the field. I can have another person looking into the surgeon's eyes and seeing what's happened. I can have another person who's looking over here and seeing what the anesthesiologist is doing. They can look anywhere at any time and follow the action real time wherever they want to see.
Wow.
And that's what I saw originally in VR 17 years ago and was so excited about what VR could do because it allows, it takes me out of the equation and lets you learn where you need to be and what needs to be seen.
Right. There's no guy with a camera and a nurse following him around telling him, don't bump into the blue stuff. That's incredible. It's really great.
The other great thing, now that we have some of this new technology that's come out, is we can also take, and above a surgical field is surgical lights. Nobody wants to stare into them. Don't go to the sun. Don't go to go to the bright light. We want to keep you down here, but that's a joke. But what I can do is we can do picture-in-picture of like the fluoro image, hemodynamics. So instead of them trying to read a monitor across the room, they can simply just, with their eyes, simply look up and see those images and those things that they need to learn that the surgeon's seeing because he's physically in the room and has the eyesight of a human instead of trying to look through the lens of a camera.
Right. Well, that's really fascinating. Before we move on, I did want to reiterate with folks, we think we talked about this a little bit. So what you have going on right now is very explorative.
Yes.
This is, you're just seeing what sticks. Let's throw a bunch of spaghetti at the wall and see if it's done.
That's a great way to put it.
So right now, I'm curious, what is sticking? What are you most excited about? Do you see a very specific future ahead of you?
Oh, I see an amazing future ahead of me. Probably one of the biggest things I'm seeing that's sticking is the live surgical events, especially through some of the new stuff that we're having that we can actually move from. Right now we're at streaming level, and so there's a latency involved. That's okay if we're just learning, but I want that two-way interaction. And none of the platforms, Zoom or any of the other companies, are giving me VR, full real-time Zoom.
Right.
But another company that's out there gives us what we call decreased latency streaming. So we can, or fixed latency streaming. So we can put a fixed delay on our stream. And then we can have an audio channel through a phone line or POTS line coming back to us. This is the same thing we've done for years with satellites. Mm-hmm. So when you see satellites on the news and you see that slight delay because it's having to bounce so far, they're coming back usually on some other system.
Right, the anchor says something and then the reporter has to wait a second. I see.
Right.
Okay.
With using VR, we can say, okay, we want this to be under of a second fixed latency. By fixing it latency, and the surgeon doesn't need to see the classroom or the person on the other end. They just need to hear the voice. So by using a phone line or a POTS line, that increases that to and from, compresses that down to under a second, so it's almost perfect real time.
Wow.
Therefore, the questions coming back from the far side can answer what they're seeing in real time at that. If we have a 5-second delay, what that surgeon tied on that knot or put that valve in is beyond what that question's coming back. So the question doesn't quite work. So that's one of the first things I see that's happening in this. I see probably the other thing is in patient side and patient education.
Okay. And
probably the other thing I really love is we've got some new software that's coming out, and it's the gamification and the e-learning aspect that we can do with 360 video, where I can actually, and one of the things we're looking to put together is working with the Phoenix Zoo and put together a choose your own adventure at the zoo. Now, at first we're putting this together for kids, but I started thinking there's adults that would like this too. And so we go to the Phoenix Zoo and instantly there pops up a menu selection there in the VR headset that says, do you want to see the lions or the tigers?
Oh, I love this.
Do you want to go to the bears?
Yeah.
And once you see that and have some interaction, we're also working with the zoo to get some info bubbles. Did you know the lion eats so much, pounds of food, or the rhinoceros does this, or they, those wonderful little info bits that you see on the signs.
Infotainment, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so you can go round and round. Well, let's take that from the information side to the BMET side or something else. So now we bring them in to an appliance that needs to be serviced, and we set them up in a critical scenario. So now we can say, this thing has failed. What do you do now? Do you do this? Do you do this? Do you do this? And by doing that, we can either A, spin them off into a different video scenario that shows that was maybe the wrong choice or the right choice, or we simply say, nope, this was the wrong choice because of this. We don't want to spin them off too far into into the wrong place.
Right.
But we want to take that e-learning, and that goes right back into the hospital and the clinician area. When we're training a new doc on something, or somebody coming in with a new nurse or clinician in the ED, what do you do now? Do you send them out for blood gas? Do we send them to radiology? Do we wait for the doctor on call to come in?
Well, I got to say, we were, for those who weren't able to make it today here at San Antonio, Texas for AAMI Exchange, Steve's booth has been swarmed by biomeds. Everyone wants to know more about it. Some of them are probably thinking about training, but it's also just the wow factor. It brings people and it really attracts folks to this new technology. So are we going to see you next year at AAMI Exchange? I don't want to put you on the spot. Okay.
I was talking with my boss about this, and I think so. A couple of real quick things. I had 10, I wish I'd brought it. I had 10 points I did the talk of why, VR is so great. And one of us is it decreases time in learning. It teaches retention factor. It teaches time and travel. If we can bring them virtually to some place, they don't have to physically travel there to get there. But my number one reason why I think I love VR the most is VR is fun. There is something about when my nurses go through the training that we have for them, when my clinicians go through the training on this, I don't see frowny faces. I see people that when I show up on the floor or I have somebody show up on the floor, they go get my headsets. It's not like, oh, I got to go through the VR training again. They enjoy it and they learn different aspects of it every time.
Hey, I mean, this has been fun even just talking about it, so I can imagine. So hopefully we'll see you again next year in California. We're going to be at Long Beach for AAMI Exchange, so if you missed it this year, come on down next year.
Please. We'll put you in a headset. We're actually, I was talking to the boss. I said, I really want to get some of these new applications that we're working on. We'll be able to demo those new applications there.
Perfect. So we got something to look forward to. Well, thank you again so much for taking the time to speak with us today, and I'll see you next year.
Thank you, Brian.
All right.
Sure enjoyed it.